First, Western Cape Human Settlement says hundreds of housing opportunities have been lost to vandalism and land invasions. Thousands of pieces of land have also had to be forfeited. How did we get to this point, and how are we going to fix this? I'm joined by the provincial MEC, Tertius Simmers. MEC Simmers, good to have you with us. Appreciate your time. I mean, it really does seem like this is going to almost, if without urgent intervention, become a lost cause.
Indeed, Gareth, good morning and good morning to all of your viewers. Over the last 3 years, we've lost about over 1,600 settlement developable land. Also, we've seen units being invaded, 100 to be exact, but the true cost of repairing those units and ensuring that we have securities in excess of 124 million, which means in real terms, we've actually lost 700 housing opportunities over the last 3 years due to these acts of criminality. So indeed, it is a growing problem, not only in the Western Cape, but also in other provinces, I do believe.
And who is supposed to stop these land invasions and these illegal settlements from forming in these areas? I mean, it doesn't just pop up overnight. I mean, we're talking thousands of people moving onto land that should not be there. Who is supposed to be stopping that from happening, A, and B, MEC, who's now supposed to be in charge of fixing this particular problem?
Well, indeed, Gareth, in a perfect world, in a perfect South Africa, the police has the core mandate of protecting, all 9 provinces and, the sovereignty, which includes our land. But sadly, in the Western Cape, as an example, they are under-resourced. So that is ultimately due to that lack of resources that we have seen these successful invasions. Obviously, in the local sphere of government, they do play a role in coordination with a leading role of SAPS. But what we have done as a mitigating factor in the Western Cape as a provincial department, together with the municipalities across the Western Cape, but also in the city of Cape Town, which has carried the brunt. We have actually reprioritized resources. We put in private security to ensure that it does not happen. Otherwise, the scale of loss would have been a lot worse. But ultimately, moving forward, we're willing to see SAPS playing a bigger role. We need to see more effective resources and prioritized units being put in place, and hence, our consistent call and support as a human settlements component in the Western Cape for the devolution of the policing to be in the ambit of the provincial government, because we are seeing these problems, but we have a workable solution. So currently, our cost, but also the cost of future housing possibilities and opportunities to the much needy, we are actually fulfilling that mandate of securing not only our land, but also projects which have also been invaded or attempted invasions, Gareth. So it's a cost, massively, a social cost due to the policing inadequacies, due to the insufficient manpower, also in the Western Cape.
Help me understand, MEC, if all of these authorities that you just mentioned were able to, I don't want to use the word reclaim the land, because I understand it has connotations attached to it, but restore the land to what it was originally planned to be, how quickly could you get your job done? If you were to have that land opened up again, how quickly could you get these families onto the land, into houses, into homes that they're meant to be in? And what would be the timeline of that in a perfect world?
Well, in the perfect solution where the community play their part in all key role players, it takes up to 3 years for you to implement a project. Now, given that we respect the rule of law and where land is invaded, there's specific time frames. In a perfect world, if the police did what they were supposed to, we could still manage to maintain or work within that 3-year time frame. In the Western Cape, our approach will be and has been since 2020 to partner with the private sector, so we can see a rapid acceleration of these housing opportunities. But that's in a perfect world where currently we can do what we can to the best of our possibilities. But ultimately, in a perfect world, we can resolve these solutions. It can take up to 3 years before we can implement our projects, which is earmarked for these specific projects to qualifying beneficiaries.
And I'll leave this as my last question to you, MEC, as well. Let's not forget that while we are talking about land that was meant for a particular housing project or housing projects in this case, once we have land invasions involved, there are currently people, arguably, who shouldn't be on this land now living there. They also have human rights and dignity which needs to be adhered to. Where do they go?
Well, indeed, we all have rights. Those beneficiaries who are now being kept waiting longer, also losing out on their rights for adequate housing because they respect the rule of law. Those that are invaded, where we need to approach the court. We have seen various court rulings in the High Court of the Western Cape More so, some of the most recent judgments prove the courts are realizing the conundrum that has been left due to the impact of COVID-19, but also those individuals have rights, correctly so. And as such, we have been engaging the National Department of Human Settlements, but also, our the local government department provincially, so how we can resolve this matter, because once we do get a successful interdict, we will need to find a way to deal with those individuals in a constructive way, because ultimately there's certain restrictions on our current budget. I'm only allowed to spend money on qualifying beneficiaries, but due to the scale of the problem, I have been engaging the national minister to see how we can find workable solutions, because this is a phenomenon not only in the Western Cape, and we will be reconvening these discussions in the new year, because we do want to see us exercise our right for those qualifying beneficiaries, but also to deal with those individuals who have invaded the lands in a legal manner, to jump the queue, so to speak, and how do we deal with them in a legitimate way, so we can balance the human rights of both the qualifying and non-qualifying beneficiaries within the rule of law, within the judgments at our disposal.
I imagine then, MEC, and I will leave this as my last question, I imagine we're not going to start seeing red ants going through and breaking down shacks of people who are on that land in order to make space for other people to be on that land. There's a better way of doing this. I'm sure you agree.
Now, look, indeed, there is a better way. We do have interdicts. We follow social compact processes until such time that we can see, whether it's a real need-driven invasion, or, as we've said, is in the bulk in the Western Cape, criminality playing a huge role. Then we do approach the court as the final resort, but ultimately, together with our communities, we can resolve this in a more humane manner within the rule of law, but we also need to protect the land at our disposal, which is still developable. And for that, we do need to approach the courts to exercise our right, also with our mandate for human settlements in the Western Cape.
Well, then for the moment, I wish you a Merry Christmas. If you are celebrating, all the best for the year. As you say, you will continue with these discussions with the Minister come 2023. I thank you, Western Cape Human Settlements, MEC Tertius Simmers.